Microphone check, 1, 2, what is this? It's the 5'7" assassin in the podcast business. I am your host, Rohan Patra, the rap music plug at your service.
Here we are again at the end of a rainbow.
Music that strikes an emotional nerve is always my cup of tea, whether that emotion is fueled by the production or the vocals. In the case of the album Incorruptible Saints, we don't have to choose though, because the emotional impact is supplied in equal parts through the rhymes and the instrumentals. Honest introspection in the lyrics come from Nebraska rapper Sleep Sinatra, which were placed atop gorgeous, warm, abstract soundscapes created by Portland producer Televangel, formerly known as Young God, and as one half of the critically acclaimed production duo Blue Sky, Black Death. Televangel's creative musical brushstrokes did wonders to bring out Sleep Sinatra's thoughtful perspective and vulnerability. These two joined forces to make music that truly does its beautiful artwork justice, and they are here today to dig into the making of Incorruptible Saints in the latest installment of the album Alchemy series. The Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV is the remedy to the I don't have anything good to listen to problem. Through in-depth album and song reviews, as well as artist interviews and general rap commentary sprinkled in between on all of what the mainstream and underground rap scenes have to offer, this is your one-stop shop to knowing what to add to your queue, play next, or pop into your record player. Welcome to the show. Sleep Sinatra Televangel, how you guys doing today?
Good, man. Thanks for having us.
This album's crazy. Really dope. Been constantly in my rotation since I first got my hands on it, and I just feel it's dope, and I think the reception has been great, and that's always really nice to see. A big theme has been largely that this is like Sleep, this is like your best project so far, or at least like one of your best projects. I don't think I've heard anybody who's been saying that are fans otherwise that this is a kind of a disappointment. I think everybody's been very impressed with both of you guys just stepping up your games.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's been the general consensus that I've heard so far, and I really feel like that. You know what I'm saying myself. Like I was saying before we hopped on, I listened to this project more than any other project I released recently, and that's something I don't usually do. You know, one of my own worst critics. So that's, I think that the feedback is speaking for itself, man. I'm really proud of this project.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I always set out to do. If I'm collaborating, I'm like, okay, I want to make it their best projects. It's my only like really competitive side of myself. I mean, competing with myself, but like, yeah, I mean, I always try to like, I want to make the most special album that they've done. And Sleep has such a crazy catalog, so I mean, I know I had a lot to go up against, but yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out.
And let's start with how this connection first formed. Something that also was informed to me off camera is that this is the first time you guys are seeing each other.
Yeah,
which is the second time on the RMPP in the last like 2-3 weeks. That's hilarious. Yeah, so I'm curious to know like how you guys kind of got on each other's radars and what kind of inspired the collaboration. So I think we can start with you, Sleep. You've linked up with, as Televangel was just saying, with many other great producers and created some great work on full-length projects, especially, like August Fanon, Ed Glorious, to name a few. So what captivated you about Televangel and how he approaches production that enticed you to work with him?
Well, yeah, thank you for that, first of all, man. And, I've been aware of Blue Sky, Black Death for years and years. Something that I discussed with Televangel a while back is, there was a point in time I was living in kind of like a bad neighborhood and was still hustling. I just had my first child. And there was a joint by Jean Grey produced by Blue Sky, Black Death called Away With You that was in constant rotation at that point in time. I also remember around that time period, I was a part of a hip hop group with a couple local cats, and regular lab freestyle sessions. You know what I'm saying? Something that would be a constant rotation was the instrumentals from that Holocaust project from back then. So I mean, like, definitely has always been a huge inspiration sonically. You know what I mean? It was always like a benchmarker to be able to collaborate in some way, shape, or form. So, 10 or so years later down the road for us to be able to connect through really, I mean, I would say like degree of separation, basically. You know what I'm saying? Like I think AJ Sway might have been a big factor in us combining forces. So I mean it's heavy for me, man. This is definitely a hallmark in my career, something that I hold really special to me.
Yeah,
I
I think
love
it was
that.
definitely like I've been seeing Sleep's name around for a few years, like hadn't like really delved into his work, but he definitely, like was in my periphery. And it was definitely AJ though. I saw you guys collaborating a lot, and since AJ and I were like working on stuff, and so I started to delve in. I was like, man, like love Sleep's voice. Is like, introspective, reflective sort of lyrics. Um, so I don't, yeah, I don't, I'm trying to think when we actually like started talking about doing work, but uh, I guess it was reaching out for the Milk Project too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I want to say it
yeah,
was like off the tail end of just doing Shadow Self with Obliv that we had started talking about doing something. I think that's when you, like you said, you reached out about the Milk Project, and then from there we just started developing. Man, I want to say it was
yeah,
somewhere around there though.
yeah. I think it was post asking for that, and I started sending you some packs, and like you had been releasing stuff in the meantime, but you're kind of it was on the back burner for both of us, but like it started slowly simmering, and like yeah, about halfway through, we're like, okay, we can do full on project.
Yeah, it was just a different vibe, man. You were providing that palette that like just a really, and I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this later on too, but the production style that you were providing for me just allowed me to be a lot more free, and not really feel so confined within spaces that I guess certain like other types of production or styles of production would kind of box you into. So I mean, it was just like it's kind of automatic, man. I would want to write to your beats before anybody else once I got like focused into that pocket. That's how I knew.
Yeah, that's dope.
Mm-hmm. And let's get into that musical palette a bit. So, for those that aren't aware, myself and Televangel, we did collaborate on something in the past on as a written piece, which I don't do these anymore, but they briefly short-lived thing called Three Keys on the website for the podcast. And that was we had a really dope write-up where I got some thoughts from both Televangel and Suede for Metatron's Cube. And so one of the things you said in that piece that I found so interesting, and I feel like it's been a pretty consistent like element of your musical philosophy, let's say, is that you were aiming for a clean dirtiness, is the words you put it. And I think how you
Yeah,
said it's like I wanted it very warm and the drums to be thick but not overpowering, highs turned down a bit. And I think that's been a on the Milk project, on this project. I really love that, and I feel like that's like just a trademark that I'm starting to associate with you. But on this album with Sleep, it definitely isn't the same thing because I feel like there's a particular emphasis on a lot of sweet ear candy, a lot of like prettier elements, like ethereal. I mean, like it kind of sounds like this beautiful album cover from Big Flowers here with the pink and all those beautiful colors. So yeah, how would you describe the palette of music that you were trying to create for Sleep specifically on this record?
yeah. No, I think you're spot on. Like I definitely have sort of developed sort of, I guess, like this style that came off the heels of Metatron's Cube, but I'm still every album. I'm like, okay, it's got to be a little bit different. I don't want every album even necessarily mixed the same way. Like I mix Suede a certain way because that's kind of what we've agreed upon. But like with this, I was actually cranking up the dirtiness a little bit more than I do. But yeah, I also want some more melodic elements because a lot of Sleep's music is very like the beats he's rapped on that I've heard at least are like relatively minimal, and you got like just raw like dirty boom bap drums. I was like, okay, I want to hear him something like a little more melodic because I feel like his rich voice is like can really work over anything. So like I can make my music a lot more emotive. I can make it dark. I was definitely really leaning into more of the jazz influence that I've had, just because I feel like his voice really lends itself well to that. But also, I wanted to hear him on some like kind of dark stuff, like we did on Widow's Peak. But yeah, I was going for just like, well, something that's always stuck with me is like, sorry to bring up Sweat again, but yeah, he's like Televangel one man rock band, and I kind of like once he said that, I was like, yeah, that's kind of like what I'm going for. I want my music to sound a, like a band almost, and I don't want people to know where the sample and the live instrumentation ends and begins.
Hmm.
I want it to be kind of seamless, and that's kind of been my goal with producing lately. Is like I got a lot of live keys, playing a lot on the keyboard, and I'm trying to like, but I'm trying to produce sort of an older sound that, yeah, you just think it's a sample, but it's not necessarily. And I want people to be able to, or I don't want them to be able to guess which is which.
I do feel
Um,
like there's this vintage quality to your production. I definitely hear that. But it's like vintage in I don't know how to say it. It's like vintage in like aesthetic, but it's not vintage in terms of how it sounds because of all the modern techniques you put on it. With like,
yeah,
I don't know, you're the producer. I don't know what you're actually doing, but like you
yeah,
get my point. Like it's a really cool mix, I think.
no, spot on. Yeah, no, I glad you're picking up on that. That's definitely what I'm going for. And a lot of what determines where I go sonically is like, oh, I'll get like a new piece of gear, or like some new software that I'm kind of experimenting with on this album, so it sounds slightly different than the last album. So, but yeah, so you'll hear like a lot of keys and different type of percussive instruments on this album that I was using and having fun with. But like sleep, like again, like Sleep's voice and the type of stuff he raps about, I feel like I can almost go like in any direction and it just sounds good. Like,
That's kind of how I felt on the rhyming aspect of it too. You know what I'm saying? Again, like I was saying, how you just really opened up a lot of room for expression, and the emotive aspect you were speaking on definitely translated to me sonically and is what made me kind of trim the fat, you know what I'm saying, lyrically, and get to just a more direct approach with what I'm saying. You know what I mean? And just worked excellently, man. Shit was seamless.
Yeah, let's get into that a bit more. So you you've always been a relatively introspective artist. I think that was one of the first takeaways I took from your music whenever I really tapped in, I think in like 2021. You got this great line, for example, like that has stuck with me on Canonized. You say only demons your self-worth, N-words they own devils. Like just saying
Yeah,
that you're your own devil. Like damn, man,
yeah.
like your self-doubt is like that one really resonated. And there's so many lines like that where I get really sucker punched in the face with something that's pretty profound. And so talk to me first about the kind of lyrical ground you were trying to cover on this album and the purpose behind that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that bar alone, it's I feel like that's a pretty good example of where I was trying to go lyrically with this. So we're our own worst enemies more often than not, you know what I'm saying? As far as deciphering that bar goes. But yeah, like I was speaking about the emotive aspect that Televangel brought with the production, it allowed me to be vulnerable in a sense that was more direct instead of feeling the need to overly complicate things. Not saying I do that necessarily, but sometimes you want to be more esoteric with the way that you're going about saying things, depending on the production and everything that Televangel saying. I want to say a big part of this too is in the post production. Like he absolutely bodied the post production. Some of these joints didn't sound the same at all from when I had sent him my demos back to the what you hear on the final version. And that really brought a different level of feeling too. I don't know, man. It just made me want to break out of my shell even more and give bits of me that were more transparent, but in a way that was a little bit more attainable than my previous work, if that makes sense. Like for the intro joint, for example, you know what I'm saying? I want to say that's maybe one of the first songs that I wrote. And
Yeah, I think that was the first one for sure you sent me
yeah,
back. Yeah.
yeah. And I was really in the mode, you know what I'm saying, when I was writing that, and was going through some things at that time that made me think about legacy and made me think about what I had established up until this point. And the fact that I'm writing to a televangel beat, 10 years ago, like I said, I was bumping Blue Sky Black Death and just hoping for that opportunity at some point. So it was really at a very introspective point of thinking, and I wanted to translate that as clearly as I could throughout this album. And also, there's okay, for example, like with Zod, writing Zod, I just wanted to push my pen. You know what I'm saying? When you are working with cats that you've always wanted to work with, a Televangel, an Obliv, people of that caliber, I want to make sure that like I'm going all out. You're gonna get 120% from my pen. You know what I'm saying? And I felt like I kind of had a point to prove. I don't remember exactly where I was at mentally with that, but I was a little bit perturbed about something when I was writing that. And I remember I hit Televangel like, now I'm super caffeinated and hyped. Just check this out, and sent sent
Yeah.
sent it through. You know what I mean? And I guess speaking into that as well, trying to experiment with more emphasis on my delivery and cadence on this album as well. Enunciating things differently was a focal point for me as well. So yeah, I definitely, I try to approach everything differently, but again, man, there's just big factors in the production that Televangel was sending me that sent me in different directions with what I was going to do with my pen.
Yeah, I like that idea of the production unlock or allowing you to be more direct because I think if I'm understanding correctly, I feel like something you're describing in your previous work or just anybody's work where the production, a rapper's working with production that's not necessarily as overtly emotive as some of these beats are on this album is that as a listener, if the beat is just like, I don't know, not bringing me to that emotional place, but then the artist is just all of a sudden like super directly like bearing their soul, it could be kind of off-putting or just kind of strange, just like this doesn't really make sense. So to your point, you do kind of have to be emotional or introspective in this like esoteric kind of way where that's cool. I love that shit too, but you can't really run the whole gamut of like just being like bare soul, which I feel is more so the way you took this album because it fit like you don't have to like there's no pretense required of like if I listen to that beat, I'm like, oh, this sounds like something that's pretty emotional already. So
Yeah, and again, I think that just speaks to the production that Televangel was lacing me with. You know what I'm saying? It's easy to listen to organically, and I wanted to make sure that when I was writing, that it was something that's accessible. And I think that that is mainly the reason why it's being received the way that it is too, because it's just a really accessible listen. I play it front to back all the time. You know what I mean? Like I said, that's something that I don't necessarily do with all of my projects. So yeah, man.
right. And speaking of this emotional aspect, right? Televangel, something that I was particularly interested in is how your past as part of Blue Sky Black Death helped you craft this kind of sound that allows you to be so emotionally affecting in your production in this more hip hop space now. Because one of the things I've always admired about Blue Sky Black Death was like I was actually listening to some of Noir yesterday, and I feel like it has this aesthetic to where like it like soundtracks it could soundtrack moments in movies where the main character's having like an epiphany, a climactic moment of like peace and happiness, like one of those like beautiful scenery, bright
Yeah.
sky, and it's just like Blue Sky Black Death, such a good title like of a group because that's like kind of a great representation. There's like an uplifting beauty, and I feel you've brought this to that's the same kind of feeling is very apparent on this album, but it's definitely different. So I guess my
Yeah.
question is, yeah, like how has that past of yours helped influence, how you take your production now?
Yeah, I guess, well, for one thing, it's almost just like I'm channeling the same influences I've always had. So what made Blue Sky Black Death. Blue Sky Black Death was like both of our influences combined, and we were both people that listened to just such a range of different music. Like when I was growing up, like my first music I was buying was like, so like in the 90s there was that sort of neo swing trend, which is like, it was kind of an embarrassing trend, like kind of corny, but like I was a kid and I got into it. But that led me to like the better jazz. Like, so I got into like, well, first I got into like the older swing, like Count Basie, and then that led me to like bebop, like Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, and like, and then cool jazz like Miles Davis and Coltrane, all that stuff. So I was like really into that, like junior high. So I always had that influence, and then you know that was about the same time I was really getting into hip hop, and I was getting into like sort of like post rock and like this like instrumental, epic instrumental, like Sigur Rós type stuff, Godspeed You Black Emperor, bands like that. So like that was always really the idea behind BSPD, and I just really at this point I just like can't really let go of those influences. So that's still where I can't come from. Yeah, like I just think that has really lended itself to like being able to tap into like different emotional aspects, because like I can sort of blend like the sort of like dark jazziness with some more like ambient sort of abstract sounding stuff. And I feel like at this point it's like it doesn't come off too awkward because I just been doing that for so long. I feel like it's kind of like what I'm best known for.
Exactly. And I find it's just, yeah, as you said, it doesn't come off stilted or out of place because it just feels so ingrained to everything you do that I don't think twice about it, I guess you could say, which is a very good thing you can say as a listener when you're evaluating a beat, for sure.
Yeah.
Like with this recent foray into hip hop production for you, like how has that helped you grow as an artist? Like what have you learned from this recent shift in your career?
Yeah, it's been really fun. Because I think about the time before I released Metatron's Cube with AJ, I felt like I was kind of in like a little bit of a no man's land. And I've been a part of so many different eras. Like um, I don't know what era you want to call like the early 2000 aughts era, but then there's like the blog era, and then 2015 to like 2019. I don't know what that era was. That was sort of a no man's land era. And I was more focused on like by electronic and sort of ambient music, and there wasn't really like any sort of community that I found around it. So it was harder to sort of connect with people and like grow a fan base. Like there's only so much that BSPD, like the name, was sort of doing for me at that point, and it wasn't like a calculated move. But when I started releasing the hip hop stuff, like starting with Metatron's Cube, it's just like, for one, it like excited me and just like gave me this sort of new inspiration and new appreciation for everything that was happening like underground hip hop scene. And so I definitely credit Suede for like getting me back into the space where I'm doing a lot of hip hop stuff. And this actually reminds me, because I was just talking to a friend who has a small blog, and he mentioned to me that when he's posting either rappers or band stuff on Instagram, he gets the most sort of excitement and positive feedback from rappers and producers, hip hop producers. And I really feel like that speaks to like how the sort of community aspect around the underground hip hop scene is right now. It's like I feel like people are excited again, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree for sure.
so yeah, it's cool because you didn't really have people like writing or tweeting about like whatever sort of ambient music that I was doing, like versus like hip hop. You have people like reciting their bars on Twitter, or like just geeking out about different beats and different rappers, and I think that's just a really inspiring aspect of it. is that you see people really excited around your music, and that just always helps us because it feeds us, you know. Like we we got some egos. We need a little bit of
Yeah.
encouragement, you know. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It's a little fuel to the flame, man. You know,
yeah,
it is. It's
yeah,
mad cool being able to see
yeah.
people be receptive and like you said, add depth and have conversations about things that you created. I think that's amazing, man.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so one of the other kind of interesting wrinkles about this album is Sleep, you spoke about the different kind of cadences and like experimenting with like changing the way you enunciate certain words. I do hear that. I also hear there's a few singing moments on this album, which was definitely caught me off guard because like a few times I like checked the credits and I'm like, is there a singer here that's featured? And I'm like, no, this is just Sleep. This has to be just Sleep then. And so, specifically on Canonized, I really loved that one. I think there was two tracks in a row where you had some singing. What inspired that new wrinkle in your kind of repertoire on this record?
Yeah. It's funny, right? Because like I just be playing around, man. I don't really consider myself like an actual vocalist when it comes to that, but definitely have that in my roots. You know what I'm saying? My dad was in a funk band, back in the day. I have an uncle that is probably the reason why I am the MC that I am as far as like influences. Grew up around listening to like Outkast and a lot of G Funk stuff like that. So I'm already naturally inclined to experiment as far as vocalizing and you know what I'm saying, just doing some funky stuff from time to time. But I'm glad that it's being received well. I wasn't sure how I felt about it. I think I might have mentioned something to Televangel too, and he let me know like, yo, that's dope. And
Yeah, you sent me the first one was the Fire Forge one, I think,
yeah, yep,
which
yep.
it was on a different beat, a totally different beat. So that was like the only main challenge I had is switching out the beat. It was like, okay, I got to make a beat that the singing still works on. Cause I was like, I really loved that. And you had it just as like a bridge, like after the verse. So I was like, nah, I want to make that actually just like a cool little wordless chorus in between verses.
Yeah, you laced
Um,
that, man.
and I really loved how that turned out. And I was like, yeah, you should definitely encourage you to keep doing that because it's a dope little element. And I've always liked when rappers who don't consider themselves singers sing,
Yeah.
like, and not even put autotune on it, just like raw, like even when like Sleep's like good, but even when like they're bad singers like Ghostface or whatever, like I love when Ghostface does those bad singing choruses, like
Mm,
yeah,
That's definitely inspiration too. It's like the ghost faces, you know what I'm saying? Like
yeah,
Mock is another cat that's really great
oh
at
yeah,
doing some vocalizing, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Even though you can
yeah,
kind of tell he's not like all the way serious with it too, you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean I've done a couple little like you said, it's just like a bridge or an outro to tracks where I might vocalize at the end or at the beginning or something like that. And yeah, it was really dope to hear how in post production you incorporated that as like the focal points of the tracks, man. I'm definitely encouraged after this, after hearing the reception, the people messing with like the vocals. I'm probably gonna be experimenting a lot more with that.
yeah,
yeah,
it fit the vibe again. We keep talk. I feel like we've mentioned it constantly, like the emotional aspect of the album, but it definitely felt the soul of those singing moments definitely fit the DNA of this record. And you also shared the stage with some interesting MCs. So talk to me about how some of these collabs came to be and like why you chose to enlist these other guest artists.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to go first. I credit most of that to like Televangel point guarding, you know what I'm saying? As far as like I think we both knew we wanted to get swayed on the project just through that degree of separation. I
Mm-hmm.
want to say that was maybe one of the first collabs that happened. And then of course from being on Milk's project, I really rock with Milk's lyricism and the humor that he incorporates. Is really sharp, witty dude.
Mm-hmm. He's
So
great.
yeah, man, I wanted to make sure that he was a part of that as well. Televangel put me on to Lord Olo. You know what I mean? Shout out that dude, man. He snapped as well. I think that's definitely a name that people are gonna be hearing a lot more to come. He just got that charisma and he's got like a real ill aesthetic to him, you know. So I feel like that was a good fit as well. Archie was somebody that I had actually worked with prior to this project on the Shadow Self project with Oblib, and then Televangel had brought up the idea of potentially getting him on this. So that just we already had chemistry. Like low key, me and Archie got a few joints in the tub.
Nice.
Yeah,
Um,
that's funny because I missed that you had already done that with on the Obliv albums, but I just like thought I came up with that idea. I was like, oh, okay, but I'm glad it
but
made sense though.
yeah, man, it worked. It just worked perfectly because we just, I don't know, Archie's my dude, man. We're very like-minded individuals in certain ways. So it's like we got some ill chemistry there, and glad that he was a part of that too. And then with Squeegee, that was somebody that like I've been familiar with for a while, and we've been aware of each other's work. And I just think he's a really talented dude, man. And it was somebody that I wanted to like spotlight, and also I felt like his voice would just worked, you know what I'm saying, as far as the joint. And yeah, man, I think it all really came together seamlessly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, as far as like I I mean, I hope hopefully people aren't getting like, oh, like tired of the having similar people on the same records, but I like to keep like it in the family, so to speak, a little bit. Like people that I work with a lot. I like, I like switching verses with people, and like that way it kind of cultivates some sort of scene around the music we put out. Yeah, like the AJ was definitely the first track that you got. That he did that really early on, like really
Yeah,
early on in the collaboration. That was one of those tracks that ended up being totally different. I ended up doing that like really last minute. Like I had the original most of the time that we were working together, and then like it might have been the last month I just finally switched out because I was like I liked the original beat, but it was like it was almost too normal for like I don't know. I wanted to bring something different, and I'm glad I did because that's one of my favorite beats on the album.
yeah, that beat
Um,
is amazing. You definitely added like a whole nother element to that. Came out crazy.
Thank you, man.
I definitely think that whole keeping in the family vibe is already reaping dividends, sorry, because I I definitely really liked Milk once I finally got tapped into the project, but I think I was slightly late. I definitely saw everybody else like raving about it. I was like, "Oh, this is good." Then I started to like, okay, I really fucking like this. I copped it. But then I hearing him on this project really like I think fully made him click for me. I went back and listened to that project, Neutral Milk Motel, and I was like, this is incredible. Like this guy is a fucking he is a star in the making, and I just like he's so funny and talented. It's just I love that. I love when features kind of do that. It's just a great thing. It's a great feeling.
Yeah, I mean that was just like an obvious choice since we got Sleep on our project. It was like Milk was literally over, and like I was playing him some of the tracks that we had done, and he's like, "Damn, I think this is the best Sleep shit I've ever heard." I was like, "Yeah, you want to get on it?" And then so he recorded that, and then yeah, Lord Olo's some dude that I got hip to from Christ Koopa, who's a Seattleite guy that I knew from 10 years ago, but he was like a young kid, and now I feel like he sort of carried the torch of that era. And he's putting out his Lord Ola's album in like, wait, what's today? It's coming out. I think it's coming out in a couple of days.
Oh,
So I
nice.
definitely think everyone should check that out.
Yeah, so
Yeah, Lord Ola's got a bunch of really cool videos on YouTube too. Like, I definitely think he's going to be someone to watch for. We
Yeah, I gotta
also
tap in.
working on some music with him too. Basically working on music with everyone on that album. I guess except for Squeegee. I don't. That's Sleeps dude because I haven't really tapped in with him on a personal level. But yeah, I think I've worked with everyone else on that project. Got some
Nice.
tracks with Archie as well. Yeah, so see where that
it's
comes.
fire.
That's interesting, Yunarshi. So let's talk favorite songs. If you had to pick one on this record, Sleep, you can go first.
Man. And see, and this is normally like if you would ask me this, it's pretty easy for me to pick like a singular joint. Off the top of my head, Widow's Peak automatically. You know what I mean? That vibe is just crazy. It sounds crazy in the car. I was bumping that in the car earlier. And like, man, um, made me smile. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, if I had to pick absolutely one, it's Widow's Peak. But I love each and every one of these songs, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately, I think we have the same favorite song. Like it's it's competitive for sure, and but probably Widow Speak, especially I think especially Sleep's rapping. Like there's that meme like I think it was about singing like singing like you needed to pay rent. Well, I'm butchering it, but that's what I feel like Sleep like really was like, damn, like he's rapping to save his life on that track. Like I don't know, something about it. It sounds like he's floating. He's like ascending. It's like the
Man,
flow. It's the urgency of the lyrics, and then I did like sort of like a what's want to say like a 80s crime noir soundtrack vibe that I was doing. I
yeah.
don't know, but
And
yeah.
I think because of that vibe too, like just the whole aura of the beat when you first sent it, I'm like, man, I just really like I felt like I needed to make a statement. You know what I'm saying? That was really what I was trying to do with that song was make a statement. And I knew after I'd finished writing it before I recorded it, like, yeah, this probably gonna be the standout joint. You know what I'm saying? Just from how I was trying to come with the delivery and the things that I was saying. I was really trying to like because man, your production too is so powerful that as an MC, you don't want to ever get overpowered by the production. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like when I heard that beat, I'm like, man, that shit is hard. I gotta match the energy 1000%. So I came into that, yeah, focused. That was you hit it right on the head, man. I was rapping like the Rim was due for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine is probably I'd s- Widow's Peak is definitely up there. I mean, I'd say the final track, the title track. I
I
think
like
that
that
was a
one.
really, really I also just have a soft spot. I love it when albums close in a way that I feel is like good. And makes the album feel like complete. I really get bothered. Like an album can be amazing, but if the last track is just kind of mediocre or just like ends for no reason, and it seems like that was a weird closer, it just always annoys me. It's just a
Yeah, no.
OCD part of me, but I love that closer. I think it was such a yeah, just ended the album off on a really proper note for what preceded it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely, man. And again, speaking to the post production that Televangel did, it was like those the keys that you added at the end of that joint. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if those were like exactly what the process was, but it just is it's something so subtle, but it completed the sound of the project to me. And it's like, okay, this is the last
Mm-hmm.
chapter of the book. You know what I mean? This is the credits rolling sonically to me. Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that joint a lot too.
Yeah, yeah. I
It's
think it was
always it's
perfect.
always fun to see when like there's not an obvious favorite, like because I see everyone has a different favorite almost. Like I mean, there's some that you see mentioned more than others, but that's always a goal for me. Like I don't want to just have one like obvious best song. I want them all to be competing with each other. And I feel like, yeah, like as far as the feedback we've gotten, everyone has sort of a different favorite.
So looking forward now, what for both of you, I think we can start Televangel. You can go first then. What do you got upcoming that people should look out for? You mentioned a bit earlier too.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of stuff. I think the next thing to come out will probably be the next Milk project in September. I think September we're gonna drop it.
Okay, nice.
Um, but like I also want to get some of these instrumental versions of the albums that I've done out there, which it's not like new music, but definitely want to put those out at some point. I'm just figuring out like when how to stack things. Working on something with Lord Olo, like I just said. I think people should start paying attention to him. I got this is something I've been working on with a while, but it's this is more of like the electronic ambient sound, soul from the old Anacon days. Like I finally linked with him. We've been friends for a long time, and but he sounds really dope over like the sort of crazy shoegazy electronic stuff. So we got like an EP that'll probably come out next year. Shit, what else do I got? Oh, I got a bunch of new music coming out with De Niro Ferrar. We're just dropping singles, but we have a whole album coming out. Probably and one single coming out next month. Shit, I know there's other stuff too. Definitely my hands are full, but yeah.
That's dope. That's dope.
So,
What about you, Sleep?
yeah, man, I've got a pretty busy plate as usual myself too. Let's see, I have an album with original super legend. Works a lot with Vic Spencer and a lot of shit.
No, nice.
Yeah, so we got an album that's been completed for a while. I'm not sure when that'll be dropping, but that's finished. Working on another album with August Phenom. We've been working on that for quite a while, just carefully selecting joints. See, got an album with a Bloom Cycle, Big Flowers, aka Bloom Cycle. That's really, really left field as far as
Yeah,
like,
you've hyped this one up a bit on Twitter. I've
yeah,
been looking at the what you saying about
Oh,
it.
I've heard it. It's good.
it's
Really good.
yeah. I think that it's
Yeah.
really different too from what people have heard from me, just sonically. So I'm excited about that one. That's pretty much finished. I think we got just a couple little loose ends we need to tie up, but that's pretty much done. Let's see, man. I got another self-produced project that I've been slowly working on. Um, Working on some stuff with Trox from out of Portland as well. Shout out Trox. We just started like blocking in on that. So yeah, man, there's gonna be. I don't really have a tentative release date for anything yet, but yeah, you'll be hearing from me a couple more times this year for sure.
Love it.
I just remembered a couple more things. I don't want them to think I forgot them. I got an EP with Old Grape God.
Nice.
And
It's fire.
you got to check out the album that Big Flowers did for him. I think it's really great.
It is.
Our
very
project sounds like nothing else that I put out, but there's like older beats that I've had, but they're like very like West Coast sort of Bay Area influenced beats, and that's like Grape God's big influence is like his favorite rapper's Mac Dre, so it's really like it's a different sound for me. That'll be fun. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but yeah, shout out Grape God. Oh yeah, and then like Def C texted me the other day, so he has a title for our project, and but that dude has so many projects that I don't know when that's gonna come out, but he named it, so
that's
we'll
a
see.
step. Now it's a real thing. Now it's coming for real.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I got some tracks with like Prem Rock too. I don't know when they're gonna come out, but
That's
yeah.
dope. Shout out Prem Rock, man. Definitely
Yeah.
respect his pen.
Yeah. That's fire, man. Okay, well, I just have to say this really happy that you guys linked up. I don't know if I had this on my radar. I'm kind of forgetting like how this was announced, but as soon as I saw the cover, I saw the name of this album, I just had a good feeling, and all those feelings were correct. This is a really great project, and I do think this is like personally my favorite thing you've done so far. And Televangel, this goes right up there with the recent work you've done over the past couple of years, in particular as like more of the hip hop sound thing that is just incredible. I just so impressed with how you're pushing the sound.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Glad you
Thank
like
you, man.
it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on here. This has been a dope conversation. Really appreciate
Yeah, thanks
it.
for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us, man. Just glad we could line it up, you know. Just looking forward to having this talk.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave it there. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Peace.
Yeah, thank you again, man. Much love, y'all.
All right.
Much love.
All right. Bye.
So there we have it, another episode of the Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV. I hope this episode gave you some new perspectives and insights into what the greatest art form known to man in hip-hop music has to offer. If you want to support the show in the most meaningful way possible, it would be my absolute honor to have you as a patron in the new Rap Music Plug podcast Patreon. Through this Patreon, you will be getting exclusive content such as bonus episodes, exclusive album recommendations, exclusive playlists, early access to episodes, and more. And above all, though, you will be able to support the show directly in a way that will not only justify the crazy amount of time I spend on this show already, but allow me to cover some of the expenses related to supporting all of these great artists that we cover on the show through the website, and will allow us to sustain and build on this amazing growth that the RMPP has experienced recently. So if you have any questions about any of the Patreon stuff, or just want to keep tabs on the show, interact with me on rap music and all the great stuff that we can talk about, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at rapmusicplugpod, or shoot me an email at qlctv bluesky.podcast@gmail.com. You can also rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify as well. But that's enough self-promotion for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Peace.